Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Faith Family Fulfillment. This is the family edition. I'm your co-host, Chris.
I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Avery.
I'm Avery. And we are in a precarious position trying to squeeze into one camera view. Man, we need like a real studio.
Get to work.
Yeah, I'll get to work on that. I'll pray us in and we'll get started. Lord, thank you for this amazing time for us to sit and ponder about hard things and the lessons learned while we got to spend some amazing time together and actually spend a lot of time talking to you during that time together. And as we unpack the story, I just want you to get all the glory. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Mm-hmm. So this is the second time you've been with us. Mm-hmm. First time in the same space. Last time it was you in your own space, and we were interviewing you about being in our home. This one's quite different. We went and did something a little challenging this past weekend. Mm-hmm. Called 29 and 29. And if you've never heard about 29 and 29 Everesting event, it is an event that is put on several places across the country and one place in Canada, where you sign up, you go and you hike up a mountain for X number of ascents, depending on the mountain. In Utah, where we're at Snow Basin Ski Resort in Utah. It takes 13 trips up the mountain to hike the height of Everest, which is 29,029 feet. And they give you 36 hours to complete the challenge. And on paper, that sounds really simple. On paper. How is it in person?
It's a little different.
What's different?
Well, the paper doesn't account for the variables that you have to deal with, like food, nutrition, water, and the weather.
And altitude. And you start at 6,300 feet, which is thin air. And you hike up to 8,600 feet-ish, which is thin air. And you have to deal with elements and heat and rain and bugs and all kinds of things. And we decided collectively, I guess, the three of us for sure, I think the other two will have to drag along, that this was going to be a family masogi, something that we do as a family as each of the girls graduate from college and enter that next stage of life. And the idea of a masogi is something that you attempt once a year that's so hard the chances are you might not successfully complete it, but the growth that occurs over that prepares you for your next year. And we just decided after coming off that mountain, I think it'd be a good idea to unpack it on a podcast. And so that we could answer collectively the question, the question that we get asked the most often is, why in the heck would you sign up to do that?
And it's usually not heck.
No, it's usually a lot of four-letter words of how stupid and crazy.
A variety of that.
Yeah, we are. And I just wanted to unpack it, talk about some takeaways, some of the challenges, how we finished, what we learned, those kind of things. So who wants to go first with why the heck would we? I know why we would, I think, collectively, but I think individually, each of us have a why.
So what's the collective thought that you have?
I want to unpack that last. So Avery, What was your why?
Ever since hearing you talk about it, I don't know. It was kind of something like I played sports in high school. I was very competitive, and so just a little bit of competitiveness towards you. I was like, okay, I just want to do it. I don't know, it sounds fun. I enjoy being outside. I enjoy, I don't know, being in a good community. So I feel like it was right up my alley. But also, being able to be in tune with how my body was feeling, what it needed, and just being by myself those last 2 months was really cool because I literally had to rely on myself. And normally, that was something that was not difficult for me, but it made me uncomfortable because Like I've never used my body in that way to take me up a mountain. Like that was just something I had never done.
Right.
But being able to fine tune my nutrition and hydration and all that fun stuff and truly listen to what I needed was awesome.
Cool. Cool. So the background on hearing me talk about it before, this is actually my third attempt at trying to complete this thing. First year was 2020. I signed up and COVID shut the world down, and they offered us the chance to do it virtually. And so I did and completed it virtually, meaning at home in a gym by myself with a stair mill and a treadmill inside of 32 hours, did 29,000 feet of elevation. And so that gave me this idea that I could do it regardless. And then I went and did it in 2021 in person at the same exact place that we were and failed. Got 10 out of the 13 ascents before my body quit on me. And I came home and described how horrible it was. And you and Gabrielle both said, hey, can we do that? And I thought, had you not listened to a word that I've been saying about how horribly hard and difficult this is. And so you're saying that was the spark, hearing that challenge. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Why?
Well, I promised to do it with you last year.
Right.
And we didn't get a chance to because it was in Canada and they still had travel restrictions. So it was just naturally defaulting into coming into this year.
Yeah. So last year I turned 50 and was going to do it last year in Whistler, Canada with a bunch of guys. We had all planned to go. And I remember asking, hey, would you like to go and be part of the cheering section? Because it's not something you would ever, I think, sign up to do just for funsies on your own.
Probably not.
Right. And you said, I can't be part of the community if I'm just cheering. Right. And I said, am I hearing you say you'll do this with me? And you said, I'll do something hard with you on your 50th trip around the sun.
Correct.
So you're just fulfilling the obligation you made last year.
I still had the choice.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do it with you.
No, you didn't. And for me, it's just that having done the vertical feat, but in a very controlled environment, the most difficult thing about that one was it was alone. Like I was legitimately by myself 31 out of 32 hours the first time. And then seeing it in person and recognizing the difference in difficulty when you're dealing with thin air and you're dealing with the elements and you're dealing with nutrition that's not something you're used to, and how different that makes your body react. Now it's like, okay, how can I adjust? How can I success leaves clues and so does failures? What do you learn from your failures? And like I thought I had learned a lot from my failure, and I did learn a lot, but it wasn't what I thought I needed to finish. And then collectively, my collective, why I would like for us to do it as a collective, because I think that when you put yourself in situations where you're forcing yourself to grow, to do something hard, and you do it as a family unit, you're able to experience other people's struggles and try to be an encourager and make decisions that are selfless. You have to, in that particular situation where you don't want to hold anybody back from completing, but you don't want to leave anybody behind either. So, which is what I want to talk about today. We got on that mountain collectively on Friday morning at 6 a.m., trained to hike. They give us training plans, they're 20 weeks long. And I'd say we had done for sure, not all of the training. We missed some training days, but enough of it that we were conditioned to train. Like I didn't think my muscles would not get fatigued enough that I would have to stop. I thought, I know what exhaustion feels like. I've been there and I'm ready. And describe the beginning. I'd love to hear your take, both of you guys, on the beginning of like hearing Jesse speak, because Jesse gives a great speech at the beginning. And then it's the air horn that didn't blow. Like he tried to make air horn blow, it didn't go. So we all collectively start off. And I talk about how hard the first part of it is. But what are your thoughts from the beginning?
From the beginning, we sat back and kind of watched other people go up. And I knew from just hearing other people talk about it and their experiences, like watching the people that have completed it this year, and then just thinking about it, we don't need to gas ourselves out this first one. So I was like, it really is just about learning where to put your feet next time you go up. So I didn't feel any pressure. I wasn't nervous at all. I was excited to like just go up the mountain and see what it was like. So I think that's kind of how where my head was at. It was how am I going to use this ascent to better myself for the next one?
Gotcha.
And I think I said it when we were walking up there that I was glad we did that first one mostly in the dark because you had to really pay attention. Stop. You had to really pay attention to where, like you said, where you were putting your feet, how you were moving. And we did collectively agree to not start with the group just because, and it still got tight and bottlenecked, and we had to stop, and just kind of throws off your rhythm.
Right. Yeah, we did. Like I had learned that from the first time in person. Is like it's so tightly bottlenecked that you're better off pulling back so that you can walk at your own pace, or else you end up walking at someone else's pace, and that does throw off your rhythm quite a bit. So that first 500 feet of ascent is, what's the word you would describe it with?
Straight up.
Avery?
It's different. Steep. It's very steep.
Really steep. It's 500 feet up in elevation and in probably less than half a mile.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not going to use the word Jesse used, but he told him to keep that sign. Screw that sign,
And to give perspective, it's kind of like a goat track. It's dusty, dirty, rocky. Things are falling down on you as people are walking in front of you.
Yeah, and the last time I did it, the group of guys that I went with, we kind of named each section and we called that the street fight, because in the street fight, people just walk up and punch you in the face, and you're beginning this challenge. You've never, and like it was the first time we had ever done it. You have no idea what you're in for. And then inside of 300 yards, when it really starts to decline, because you've got kind of this double football field that's got a little bit of an incline, and then it just really starts to steeply increase, and you're asking yourself, what the heck am I doing? Like all the people ask us why the heck, you're wondering what the heck. And very, very quickly you're introduced to what I think is probably the most to date the most hardest physical thing I've done. Activity, duration, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. And that's kind of where you started facing your first challenges.
It was a little farther up.
So tell us about that.
So we learned this weekend that my body takes quite a long time to acclimate to elevation. Did not handle the altitude well at all. I think that's a fair statement. Started feeling not just not bad, just not well. At about aid station 2, which is what 2/3 ish.
Yeah.
Your first summit. We got to the summit. We got rehydrated, got some food, brought the gondola down, started back up on the second ascent, and leaving aid station 1. I don't even remember what I said to you, but it was my heart rate was not in a good place. By aid station 2, it was really not in a good place, and then when I got back down, it just never really straightened back out.
And when you say not in a good place, like
so Thursday night, while I was sleeping
in a tent,
in a tent on a cot, with the vents open because nature. This was not a hotel room. It was not climate controlled or anything like that. But while we were sleeping, and we wear
Whoop bands.
So my resting heart rate overnight was 90. And for perspective, it's normally like 55, 56, sometimes 60, not much more than that. I saw 205 leaving aid station 2 on the mountain. Came back down, went to the gear tent, got a change of clothes, went to a cold shower, and just sat and waited for you guys to come back. And it never got below about 1:30 with me just sitting and not doing anything.
Right.
So not an ideal situation.
Right. And Avery and I started to have conversations about, how do we encourage you? Like, what's the thing that we need to say? What's the unpacking that we need to do to help you move along? Because it was, from the outside looking in, it just looked like it was a breath thing. Right. And I was just like, you got to breathe with your steps. Because Avery said, you called it Zen. I feel very Zen. And what did you mean by that when you were hiking?
I don't know. It feels weird to say I was one with the mountain, but I was. Like, the altitude wasn't bothering me. My steps weren't bothering me. My breath wasn't getting out of control. But it was because I was focusing on in and out, step in and out with my, that's just literally just in tune with everything that's going on.
So when Dr. Trish was coaching, like, and everybody was participating and learning what she was saying, I believe that's one of the things that people overlook the most is breath control, And, I had met her before, and the whole idea of rhythm, of how many steps it takes to breathe in and how many steps it takes to breathe out, and getting really focused on that, which I think helps a tremendous amount. But from the outside looking in, for me, it was like, and that's what I kept saying to you. You got to control your breath. You got to control your breath. And like, you just didn't want to hear. In fact, Avery told me, what did you tell me?
I said, don't. She's very inwardly motivated. You don't need to motivate her by speaking to her, because it's going to irritate her, because it would irritate me.
So it's funny that you say that, because the breathing part of it really was not taxing me. And when I looked back, because we were all about data, like looks numbers to see what I can improve, my respiration rate only went up 1 breath per minute during the hikes. Just 1 per minute, but my heart rate tripled.
Right.
So,
but again, outside looking in, and I said to Avery, like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't want to leave my wife behind, and I don't want to hold her back. I looked at her and I said, I won't hold you back. And I didn't hold true to that, but that's what I said. I will not keep you from being able to finish. And, because the first hike took 2 hours and 40 minutes, 2 hours and 50 minutes. And then the third one took roughly the same. And you weighed us on halfway up the second ascent. You weighed us ahead and said, I could go ahead. And so you were obviously behind us, and we started back up the mountain for the third hike, and we made it up in 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2 hours and 12 or something like that. I mean, about 30 minutes faster, which is ahead of the pace. So in order to complete it, you got to be able to walk it 13 times 2 hours and 45 minutes or faster to be able to get it done in 36 hours, including the gondola ride down. And I remember coming down after the third, it was about lunchtime, and we had texted you and said, hey, grab us some food, because we're going to be a few minutes late, and they're going to put lunch away. And you were sitting in the lodge resting at a $132 heart rate. And one of the mistakes I made last time was, once my gut kind of told me I had to stop, I didn't use the resources that were available to me. I had 8 hours left and only 3 ascents. So definitely had the time to finish. And rather than making a decision of talking to a coach, because they provide us with some incredible world-class coaches. If you're listening, look up Colin O'Brady, Brent Peace. I wish I could remember Trish's last name. Trish Smith. Just some phenomenal athletes that are there to coach you up the mountain, and they're fully available. I mean, I could have gone to any of those guys and said, hey, this is what just happened to me. How do I solve it to finish? And I know they could have got me the last 3. So I vowed to myself, hey, I'm not going to do that this time. So my advice to you was, hey, find Dr. Trish, tell her what's happening, and let her coach you through it. So what happened there?
So obviously, when you say anything about your heart, people go into a little bit more of a higher alert. So she had me checked out by the medics. My blood pressure was elevated, but not proportionate to my heart rate. I had been sitting for probably an hour and 10 minutes at that point, just sitting, breathing at a lower altitude, still high, but lower than the summit, right? Pulse ox was okay, not a big deal. They said to go in to the recovery room, just sit, relax. We'll come and check you again in about 30 minutes to see how you're doing. I was somewhat comforted to know I was not the only person in that situation, because when I was sitting out with the medics, there were several other people kind of experiencing the same thing. So it's kind of good to know, but still completely frustrating, because you can control what you do up until you get there. You can choose to do the training plan or not. You can choose to modify how you feel your body or not. Drink alcohol the night before or not. You can make good choices leading up to it. But then, when you're faced with the situation of something that is completely outside of your control, you can't really do much about it. That's a whole different conversation. So we sat for about, 30 minutes or so, doing breath work with Dr. Trish. And I have to give her a shout out. She was incredibly amazing, just very caring, very, very in tune, really focused with me. And after about 30 minutes, I got up to go to the restroom. I had gotten it down to like 118, which is not great, but better. When I went downstairs to use restroom, came back up, and it was in like 158. So clearly we had not made any progress. Right. So you guys had gone on up for another ascent. And at that point, as frustrating it was kind of like, okay, I can try again. It's going to take me longer to get up. I won't finish, but I could get sick. And if I get sick, they're going to have to, then it won't be my choice to not be there. And I won't be any good. I can't bring you things and help you and run and go from gear 10 or whatever. So it was frustrating.
Yeah. Disappointing and frustrating, I'm sure. So Avery, when we were watching Mom go through that, what's going through your head?
I know we had talked about it before, but our heart rates get incredibly high when we're not putting that much effort in. So I was kind of like, well, I wonder what mine is, but I never did check it. But mine wasn't even spiking that much. I was worried and was concerned, and I wanted her to get back out there, because I was like, she at least needs a check mark on her back, for God's sake, she's here. But I didn't. I was just kind of quiet and just kind of I was just doing my own thing. I wasn't vocalizing any of that, but that's what I was thinking.
Gotcha. Yeah, to explain the check marks, they have the 7 highest peaks on the planet as marks that you can make as you're walking up to Everest. So the height of Everest, obviously tallest mountain in the building or in the world, and you walk by Denali and
Kilimanjaro and Elbrus and all those.
So as you're walking beyond the height of them, they put these check marks on your back to give you some accomplishment. And you're branding this board at the bottom of the hill that's marking each ascent, so you can kind of watch your progress, which is really fun to do. Actually, that's a highlight, the branding on the board. And for me, it was just, we had this idea go, like in my mind, vision wise, I could see all of us crossing the finish line with red hats. Like I really thought we were all physically prepared.
And I think we were physically prepared.
Right. And I had been through the mental challenge before. So I thought if we get to the point of a mental break, I know how to walk myself through it. And I think I can encourage through it. But Avery and I decided, like you said, to go on, and you decided to be pit crew for us, really. And we did the 4th ascent before dinner. Mm-hmm. And it was a that
was our sub.
That was a sub 2 hour to an hour 58. And we stopped, fueled the best we can. So one of the challenges, to me, the biggest challenge is figuring out how to fuel. I was burning 1,900 calories, 1,800 calories per ascent because of the heat and a raised heart rate. Mine stayed in the 150s. A couple of times it got into the 170s. But I didn't feel taxed. My body didn't feel taxed. And but because my heart rate's that high, you're burning a tremendous amount of calories, and there's almost it's impossible to eat that much while burning that many calories. Like your body just shuts down its digestive system because you're working. So the challenge for me was how to fuel. And I had gut issues last time that took me off of it. And I didn't want that to happen again. And I thought that came from dehydration. So we were really staying on top of our hydration, probably over electrolyting. I think, which I think that's part of my gut issue. And just trying to figure out, say, how do I fuel? And wanting to do it with as much whole food as possible and not using any type of gels or even the protein bars, which I used on the first ascent because they felt like a brick, But we go up and we have that sub 2 hour, which was really exciting because that put us ahead of the pace, if I'm not mistaken, at that point of being able to finish. So almost kind of getting some breathing room. And then when we started ascent so 5 was the first one in the dark.
Yeah, because we ate dinner after we got back from the 4th.
Right. And describe doing 5, the 5th ascent.
I really liked going up. Well, we got to watch the sunset, which was really nice. So you went through the really steep part and you could still see the ground and what was in front of you, which was cool because you kind of needed to see where you were going to encourage yourself up the mountain. But after that, it kind of got a little easier. So you didn't have to worry as much as, okay, well, how much do I have left? Like, because this is terrible. But that way, like once it got dark, you didn't psych yourself out from where you were going. You just focused on literally the 2 feet in front of you and where they were going next. So that part I really enjoyed.
Right. Because it did get dark on us, and you're walking with a headlamp.
It was a new moon, so it was dark.
And it was, and I made the comment, the last time I did this, it was a full moon. I mean, I remember when Steve and I were up on the mountain and we were at a spot, where it turns, you call it turning sideways. That rest spot right before the flags. And I remember standing there and we turned off our light and you could still see this. The moon was huge in the sky. And this time very different. If we had turned the lights off, we would have been in pitch black. I mean,
you rolled down the hill.
There was no moon. And so really your only light is the 6 feet of circle you got in front of you from your headlamp. And we made that ascent in like 207. So we're keeping that 2 hour pace, which to have been hiking for almost 18 hours was a really good pace. And we turned right around and we didn't take long in the bottom for between 5 and 6 and started ascent 6. And we began to talk, hey, we're going to reward ourselves with a shower if we can get to ascent 9 before 8 o'clock in the morning. So that's where our headspace was. And made ascent 6 and got done around 12:30 at night. So we were halfway done at roughly the halfway point of the challenge. And which again puts you ahead of pace. And I remember as we're coming down in the gondola, because they gondola you down, and I said, hey, that first section, we're going to have to take it a little slower. Like I just need, because I was watching my heart rate and my calorie burn had dropped to like 1,000 calories, 1,100 calories per percent. And I said, but I'm good the rest of the way. So let's readjust. Let's do 40 minutes in the first section and then maybe 35, and that'll keep us on pace.
You were doing 30 at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I mean, in my headspace was like I'm thinking about all the next ascents. I knew my energy level was fine. I'm watching you. You're still laughing and carrying on, and we're having it's not fun, but we're having a good time. I don't. That's weird, right? Because it's not fun.
No,
it's not.
But at the same time, it is.
Right.
But like, it's not like, haha, this is great. Like I'm laughing, this is fun. But it's like I'm challenging myself and I'm growing, and it's fun.
Right.
So.
And we get to the bottom, and we're like our plan. In fact, the coach Jared said, "Hey, have a time limit. Have a time limit." And we had said, "Hey, we're going to go back out in 15 minutes." And while we sat there and kind of looking for something that I could appetize, because at this point my stomach's like, it feels like I got a cement sitting in my stomach. And you brought back these gluten-free stroopwafels, which are delicious.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, I think I can eat those. And like suddenly, like I'm starting to get these really sharp cramps. And I'm in mind going, this is terrible. Like I know where this could head. And if I get headed up that mountain, like it's going to be a problem.
Mhm.
And we wasted way too much time, or I wasted too much of your time sitting there deciding whether to go with you or not. And the challenge for me was, and you had walked away to the bathroom, and I looked at your mom and I said, how do I send my child up that mountain by herself?
I said, you're not gonna be by yourself. She's not gonna be by herself.
But I was really struggling with like sending you out,
Mhm.
not because I didn't believe in you,
Mhm.
right? But you're still my little Avery, and I'm watching you walk up a dark mountain, right?
Mhm.
And knowing how challenging it is, and wanting, if you ever needed daddy, then I could have been there. And so really struggled with that. And finally, I just like, I can't hold you back any longer. And I remember looking at you going, I know you don't want to walk alone. And what'd you say?
Said, no, I don't.
But
you made
But
friends.
I'm going to.
But I'm willing.
And you made friends.
And tell us about your ascents.
I knew by that time, I knew the time breakdown and where I needed to be when in order to make a 2 or sub 2 ascent. And so I cranked it up the mountain. I did the first section in a timely manner, but I got caught behind this group of people. It was 3 of them. It was Maddie, Kirsten, and Logan. And I knew that if I walked with them, I'd stay on my pace. And so that way I didn't have to walk by myself. But also I knew if I got ahead of them, they would probably end up catching me at some point. So there's no reason to try to go around them. Like I'm just gonna be, hey, I'm walking by myself. Can I please join you guys? And so at aid station 1, we were about to head out. Logan looks at me and I was like, I'm probably a lot slower than you guys, so y'all can go ahead. And he goes, no. You're probably faster than we are, so it's okay. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna join your group. And so we all hiked up that one, and I was the fastest ascent I had done. But it was fun to do it in community because we just talked the entire time. And we were able to encourage, and like I had never met these people before in my life, but we were able to have really good conversation and just get to know each other. And it was fun because I got to see all 3 of them as like complete the challenge at the end. So I got to cheer them on and be there for that.
Right.
Now, I will, before you move on, I will make a comment about the community and the community spirit, if you will. If we could take the spirit and the camaraderie and the support and encouragement out of that weekend, and everybody could treat everybody else that way, we would solve the world's problems. Because you don't know these people. I mean, granted, you have your name on your bib, so they can call you by name, which is super important when you're doing something hard, to be acknowledged and recognized with your name. But they would pass you and they'd be like, you got this, it's good. Maybe cry. But they were so freaking encouraging, and it didn't matter if they were lapping you for the second time, or if they were having the hardest time up the hill as you were. I distinctly remember walking up on a young lady, and I mean, she was just stuck. She was just stuck. And every single person, I could hear them as I was coming up, and then as I was walking past, were calling her by her name, patting her on the back. Hey, how can we help you? What do you need? It's awesome.
Yeah, it is an amazing tribe of people, and you and I've been in a sport before, physique sports, competing in physique sports, and
Which is not that.
we talked about
And
how
I dance, like it's the same.
Yes.
Everyone's out for your throat.
and you think about, because again, it's so cutthroat, and then you go to this event and everybody wants everybody to
win.
finish.
Yes.
And and everybody's experiencing the same exact elements, the same exact challenge, the same, I mean, it's an equalizer,
For sure.
and you're right. I mean, and if coaches came up to you, like if they caught you, which they did quite often, but when they caught you, hey, is there anything I can do?
Right.
How are you feeling?
And they would walk with you. I mean, they would intentionally,
like we
not
did
leave you
laps with
behind.
the coaches on those.
Yeah, we did over half a lap with Jared, and how awesome was it that the minute, because he saw you when you're sent by yourself, and he came back and he saw me where I was down with the belly, and speaking into that, and then every time I saw him, he would say, "Hey, next time." He's already speaking in the next time and wanting to set up calls, and hey,
Mhm.
you can get through this because it's obvious you've got the mental fortitude and you're in shape to do it.
Mhm.
Now we just got to get your belly in shape.
Mhm.
But yeah, and then so that example of how the community pulls together when you're out there by yourself, abandoned by your dad, right? And so walk me through, because you like, and it was funny because when you came off the gondola
Mhm.
and you were with someone,
Mhm.
I looked at your mom and go, and I said, well, that's not what I expected.
Wow.
Well, it's
Yeah.
just because you are, I mean, you're very independent
Mhm.
and you've been independent since literally birth.
Mhm.
And to know that you went up there, did something hard, made some friends, and it was just neat to see. It was
Mhm.
neat to see. So, and in fact, I was looking at the next gondola because I was watching you come down, and I'm thinking you're getting out the next one,
Mhm.
and then
Here
you
she
came
pops out
out.
last.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's the last move. So, didn't take much break between that one and the next one,
No.
and just hauled off after number 8.
Mhm.
Which is which mountain was that?
Elbrus.
Elbrus, because that was
Elbrus.
my highest peak.
Yeah. So go after ascent number 8. It's
The sun was rising on this one. Like I
Yeah.
knew I could take my headlamp off.
yeah,
at
so
this one.
you left at about 5 o'clock.
Mhm.
Wasn't that about right? So
Mhm.
5 in the morning. And
I had probably gotten back at like 4:30.
so walk me through that. Walk me through your 8th ascent.
I left same like I knew the time breakdowns. I knew where I needed to be. And I was really trying to get through the first part because like riding down the gondola, I was like, crap, now I gotta walk up that dumb thing again. So I was really trying to get through the first part of that ascent quickly. And I did a fine job, but I felt like I felt slow. Um, like I just felt like I was breathing too much. I felt like I was taking too many breaks, but if you look at it, the time breakdown was the exact same as it was before, but I was in my head more because I did that one by myself, like purely by myself. I got to aid station 1 and I was like, I feel a little bit dizzy, but that's probably because I just hauled tail up this steep hill. So I took a 15-minute break there, which is more than I had wanted to, but I needed to catch my breath. But then I was like, all right, they're not taking me off this freaking mountain because then I'm not getting my check mark. So it's like I gotta finish this lab. And so I walked up, I got about to where the flags were, and then my headlamp cut off. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna walk without a headlamp because no one's gonna see me. And so if I fall, they're not gonna really know where I went. So I got my phone flashlight out and like used my phone the rest of the way up until I could see, and it was past 6:30. But I got to aid station 2. I called Thomas and I was like, okay, I'm gonna talk to you the rest of the way up because I'm tired of talking to myself. So I was literally talking to myself. I was like, Avery, you got this. Come on, you're strong. Just breathe. So I was like, I'm just tired of hearing my own voice. And so I called him, and then I got to the top, and it was like 2:15 lap, and then rode the gondola back down.
Yeah, we met you at the top, and I told her, I said, we get it. Because you get to the point where you don't want food.
Yeah, my food was eyeballing me back, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm just not gonna eat you. It's fine.
Right. You don't like, nothing's appealing.
No.
But the problem is you have no gas in the tank, so
Yes.
you're at a catch-22.
So you have to eat, and there's
Because I didn't eat that ascent up.
it's all you can do not to vomit.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, it's just you don't. It's just like every bite just did not want to go down, but I knew you had to, and I didn't want you to miss a hot breakfast. So we brought you breakfast, and it got cold on the way, right? And then try to put a game plan together of what the rest of the day could look like, because at that point you're barely on pace. And we did the math and said, for you to finish, it's got to be lap after lap after lap. There's no
wiggle room.
No wiggle room, no room for breaks. You got 12 hours of none.
That was 10 for
10,
5 ascents.
Yeah, 10 for 5. That's exactly right. 10 for 5 ascents. There's no, you can't pause. And walk me through, like when we're going through that, what's your headspace like?
I had already thought about that on our second ascent up, because I had been freaked out about time the entire time we were walking. And I kept an eye on that red hat pin. Like I was on it. Like, and so I had thought about it ever since our second ascent up. I was like, if I don't get to where I want to be time wise, I'm going to make the decision to come off the mountain. They're not going to tell me I can't get back up there. I'm going to take myself off and be like, okay, I'm done. And so I had already thought about it, and I thought about it that whole walk up there. I just kind of looked through a different thing. I was like, kind of want to check off all the peaks except for Everest on my back. But I also knew that if I went and like tried my hardest, I would want to get 13. I would not come home happy without that red hat. Because I knew I could do it. I felt fine. Like I felt like a leprechaun, like going up the mountain. Like I felt fine. My energy was fine. My attitude was fine. And after I had that smoothie, I felt great. But that was after making the decision to I'm not going to push myself for 13 because I literally don't think I have time.
Right.
And that would have just irritated the mess out of me to come home with 12. So at that point, I was like, well, I'm going to make a decision to come off the mountain. They're not going to tell me not to go back up. And so I was just kind of figuring out, do I want to go get the 10? Do I want to be fine with whatever I have? But I knew I needed to eat something because I hadn't eaten that last ascent up, and with the food that y'all brought did not look good. It didn't like I just did not want to put it down. So I took a shower and got a smoothie in, and then I felt fine for the rest of the day, like I really did. But as I sat down, I was like, it took me like 2 hours to decide to not go back up. Because I really wanted to, but also I knew that I'd probably harbor a lot more resentment coming home than I wanted to.
Resentment because we wasted time.
Yeah.
And you and I had that conversation, right? And like it's hard. Like we wanted to do this completely as a family, and then each one of us ran into your parents ran into their own individual challenges, which bled over into time for you, and which was probably, if as disappointed as I was for me, my bigger disappointment was knowing that I wasted an hour of your time between the 6 and 7, and that hour made a big difference. You know, and the conversation I had with you, I think one of the lessons is, you know, there's good times in life, especially with family, but often with everybody, where making the selfless decision is the right thing to do. And I described to you where my challenge was, you know, being as transparent and vulnerable as a dad as I can be. The challenge for me was not wanting to hold my child back in doing something I knew she could do, and not wanting to leave my wife when she was in a real pain box. Like it's like, so how do I navigate that? And it was as much of the challenge for me as it was walking up the street light. Mentally, that same challenge. So what did you learn about that part of it? What was your takeaway from like that conversation? I'd love to hear.
Like with myself?
Yeah. Like how did you navigate walking through, I don't want to resent my parents? How did you navigate that?
Well, I knew that I would just be a pissy pot coming home if I continued. And I didn't want to do that. So I was like, well, I can cheer people on, because I knew 4 people on the mountain at that point and a handful more that were going to get their red hats. I was like, well, I really kind of want to see them finish. I want to support them. So not thinking about like, well, man, I should have been more selfish. I should have taken time when I could have taken time and gone up, like, but being like, okay, well, I took the selfless route. And I chose to just hang in there and kind of do what everybody else was doing. But how to continue to be selfless and not be self-serving.
Right. Because we had people like Al, like seeing him get 7. Dustin, who was his first event, and he had no idea I was going to be there. I had no idea he was going to be there. Somebody we knew from Texas, and being there when he finished was pretty cool, you know, because I was able to get a video for him, and he was so encouraging. Like when he found out you were on the mountain by yourself, he's like, hey, does she want to go with us? Like he's trying to pull you into his circle. And his circle was 10 grown men. Yeah. Like it was 10 grown men, you know, who all finished. And like for him to want to share his community with you was pretty cool. But being able to, like you said, cheer the people on you ended up hiking with, you know, seeing people that we had multiple times passed. You know, I think about that Mel B girl. You know, we passed her, I know, twice. And then being there when she crossed the finish line, I'm like, daggone, like for sure we could have done it, you know. So, but I hope that's a lesson that you can take away is there's going to be times in life where you have to make that decision of how do I navigate selfless versus my ultimate pursuit, and be present for someone other than myself, because you're right. I feel like I know, right, just because we're human, there's resentment, but I think it would have been magnified.
Oh, I probably wouldn't have talked to you all the way home. Like I probably wouldn't have.
She didn't talk very much anyway. She was sleeping.
Right.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the way you showed up and the comments and the conversations I've had from Instagram since about people being encouraged by your spirit in the videos. And like I've had several dads reach out because I kept bragging on the fact that not only did you do 2 by yourself, but you navigated an adversity that not everybody had, which is halfway up your light going out, which I wish I could explain in a way that made sense how difficult that could make it. Like you can't do it in the dark.
No.
And to have nothing but your iPhone light while you're trying to carry 2 trekking poles and a fanny pack and like eat and drink, and like it's a lot. And so, but being able to think on your feet, and I mean, literally a guy sent to me because that's dad goals. It's like, dude, I ain't doing it. I just sent her off alone, and you think about the storyline of preparing a kid to leave the nest, like literally watching you walk away on that very first ascent almost bothered me as much as you driving away in your car when you got your driver's license. I mean, it was that same type of feeling for me of, and she's on her own, and, but so what are we doing different next year?
Going early.
Mom says going early.
Yeah, I would like, it's like when she says that, we probably might volunteer at the first snow basin because they do have 2 snow basins. So that way we know the mountain and we can help out, but also we are able to acclimate for the next one.
Yeah, I think that's.
I want to volunteer at the top the whole time.
Yeah, so they do like they have volunteers along the mountain at the aid stations, and a lot of them are alumni, which you remember the lady that brought me food. She actually did the virtual one with me. And she was there when I did 2021. And of course you look different. You're in a hat and you look like you've been drug up the mountain. And but she was so attentive to my need of food. Like I sat down and she saw my hand shaking. She looked me in the eye and said, "You need food." And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "What can you stomach?" Someone who's never done it doesn't know to ask, "What can you stomach?" And so we can show up differently by having done the challenge and know what to look for in their eyeballs to help them make the next trip up. And I'm with you. I think we go serve a week before, get out there, 10 days before our events, our body does have a chance to acclimate some to the altitude. And then know, hey, if you fall behind the 2 hour and 15-minute pace, we're leaving.
Yes.
We need to make that.
For the record, on that first ascent, what did I tell you? What did I tell you?
You said,
go ahead.
You
go
said,
ahead. I'm fine. I'll be okay.
I didn't say that you asked me to stay. I said my internal struggle was just that of wanting to do it collectively. But then but the thing is, you're still doing it collectively.
You are.
But being there,
everyone's going to climb their own mountain.
Yeah, they do. Right. But I literally enjoyed hiking with her up it, being able to convince her to wait on daddy for just a minute, but just knowing, hey, as long as we're under 215, you can stay in our bunch. But the minute we go beyond 215, you're on your own. And then we'll wait for 13 to see if you can walk it with us. But if you can't get to 13 by the time we get to 13 to finish, we're going to finish. Is that our agreement? So we can go back and listen to this later and say, yes, that's our agreement.
I would have been copacetic with that the first time. But one thing I want to touch on that Avery said as we were getting on the second plane to come home Sunday. She said, I really think, we showed up well because we never complained.
No.
Like in all of the suck of it, it was never a complaint. It was never negativity. It was never And it would be really easy to go down that rabbit trail and pick it all apart, but that wasn't a part of who we were in all of that.
Yeah. I don't think complaining is the right. We weren't complaining. We were just the only thing I expressed was disappointment, not a complaint, you know. But if you're out there and you're still listening, we've been on this thing for a while, still listening, do hard things together. Because we've done a lot of stuff together. It's also actually we talked about it. It's the first time we've been with Avery alone without her sisters since Gabrielle was born.
And she was 3.5.
And she was 3.5. We've done a bunch of family things collectively, but just the three of us together. It was kind of neat that was the last time we were together was in Disneyland. Not quite the same, was it, honey?
It was just
But it was still fun.
But yeah, it was an amazing thing, and I feel like we appreciate one another differently. I think we've seen each other struggle, and I said to someone today, I don't know that there's another way to gain as much self-confidence as I saw you gain in a short amount of time as that. Because that's like, I could see a difference in your confidence level walking up the second time. Like it was a different Avery that came off after Ascent 7. The Ascent 8 Avery was different than the Ascent 7 Avery. And I'm proud of you, kid.
Thanks.
Crushed it. You want to pray us out?
I'll let you.
I prayed us in.
So wrap it up. Bring it home.
Lord, thank you again for, as I said, the morning of a family that's willing to do hard things together. A family that just understands that as we push ourselves to the next level, that we grow more and we're able to fulfill your purpose better, because you always want us to reach our ultimate. And as long as we're just chasing the next better in a Christ-like manner, then we're always going to be in a way that shows up well for you. I appreciate the opportunity to share. And I hope that everyone hears that doing hard things as a family and keeping you at the center just as a way to fulfillment. You know, we call this podcast Faith Family Fulfillment. And I would say this weekend, as disappointing as it was, at least for me, was a fulfillment of a pretty big dream of doing something ridiculously hard with my family and seeing them show up in a way that I know made me proud. But they showed up in a way that I think honored you. Again, thank you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.